a story found that where it said that life is like a house, and yes, then there's God. We live in this house, and then there's God, and He is going to make some changes. And that's to be expected, because after all, if you are a spiritual personality, you expect that God is going to make some adjustments. I mean, we know there's some work to do. But as of late, no, really, as of late, what on earth is He doing? He's breaking the whole house. Right? He's turning it all upside down. What is He doing? Actually, yes, He's not just breaking the whole house, He's just changing the whole thing, and He's planning to live there Himself. This is the situation, that actually our life is meant for the Supreme Lord. And He is meant to live in our life, and not we ourselves. That's transcendental knowledge. That is basically what this verse is about. And it is about those who are not seeing it like that this house is for Krishna. They think this house is for me. And therefore, they will try to think, well, I mean, I don't like this, I don't like that, and this I want changed. But one who is thinking for Krishna, yes, such a person can become detached for personal matters, and for Krishna, attached. Then one lives a life of giving. Ultimately, life of giving is higher than a life of taking. We can take, but the more we take, still not satisfied, still not enough. First of all, how much can we take? That's already there. But even if we could take everything we want to take, still it wouldn't be enough. Because ultimately, no matter what you have in this world, it's not enough. Doesn't mean that we don't appreciate some material comfort. Oh, of course, I mean, it's nice if you have a nice house, nice this, nice that. But then again, that's also not everything. That's still not enough. Yeah, then you have everything, and then what? Then what's next? We see that with very wealthy people. They're still not satisfied. They're involved in this scandal, in this drama. And why is it so? They have everything. Because still not satisfied. So then there are prescribed duties. I was reading a book on human rights, and it says that there was a fundamental difference between the Western world and the Eastern world, because the Western world really came with this sense of right. Everyone has a right. Everyone has rights. What are my rights? You got to know your rights. Whereas the Vedic culture is different, because in the Vedic culture it is about dharma. What is my duty? So the whole culture was centered around, everyone was thinking, well, what is my duty? What am I supposed to do? Now, of course, we have that also in the West. Right? Parents are supposed to look after their kids, right? Supposedly. So we have so many responsibilities and duties, but still our Western society is more based on a meditation. What are my rights? And Vedic culture was more, what is my duty? Dharma. So it is interesting. So maybe when you read things like anyone who gives up prescribed duties, I sort of feel like prescribed duties, you know what I mean? Doesn't it sound a little intense, all these duties here, a bit heavy duty. It makes the atmosphere a little heavy. What about fulfilling your potential? What about, harnessing your nature? What about, reconnecting with your true self? What about your inner child? What about all these things? What about them? Right? No prescribed duty is what we're talking about. Gosh, I thought we were going to have a nice evening with the inner child, and now we're going to talk about prescribed duty. So you see how that is a little bit out of culture, to sort of highlight prescribed duty. But in Vedic culture, that was very natural. Very natural because the idea is that consciousness is what we are working with in this world, or in any world. We're really working with consciousness. Whatever we do reflects on our state of consciousness. And the idea is to elevate the consciousness. That is Vedic culture, to elevate the consciousness. Therefore, they say there is a path, and if you live in a particular way, then your consciousness becomes elevated. If you live in another way, consciousness becomes degraded. That's all. So there's a logic about this prescribed duty idea, looking at life as a process. When I was in Vrindavan in the 80s, I was in charge of admitting people to the ashram, and I used to interview them before they would come. So there was one English boy, and he was doing a PhD in mathematics. So, as he said, in mathematics. And so I said, well, why have you decided that you want to move into a Hare Krishna temple and live in the ashram? Why? He said, I have calculated that life is meant for self-improvement. I don't know how he calculated it. I'm not a PhD in mathematics, right? But he was right, and he figured it out. I don't know how he came to that answer. There was a formula. But anyhow, he figured it out. Life is meant for self-improvement. But it does make sense. If you say, what am I doing with my life? Well, I'm just living, just sort of vegetating, just sort of existing. Okay, is that it? Yeah, all right. I'm just growing old. I'm just sort of or a little more idealism maybe is something worthwhile. In this way, we can appreciate that self-improvement is indeed something really, really nice in life. If we come out as a better person, I'd say I'd buy into that. So then, yes, then there is a process. Then there is a way to live to achieve that. You can try and achieve that in various means. If you would go the path of psychology, then you would also have to follow a certain process to do that. Or if you want, but we're not going the path of psychology. We're going the path of devotional service. So in this way, it is said, anyone who gives up prescribed duties as troublesome. Yes, that's what happens with prescribed duties, that there is a conflict at times, not always, but sometimes a conflict arises between our personal desire and the duty. And then it becomes intense. The Vedic culture is aiming at long-term benefit. Etavats janmasafalyam denam iyadi su pranirata diyavacha shreyamacharanam sada. It is stated that if we want to make this life successful, safalya, then we have to act for the long term. So same thing again, right? Same calculation, the self-improvement. We want the long-term benefit. So yes, so this here it is stated then. One should work pranirata diyavacha with all his energy, with his possessions, intelligence, his words, all for long-term benefit. And again, that means one cannot be totally impulsive. If we're totally impulsive, then we are acting according to passions. When whatever we think we have to do, then you get in trouble. When you go into Macy's and the mind says, put it in your pocket, you'd better have some money to pay for it, or you get in trouble. So even in material life, we have to sometimes check our impulses many times, in so many ways. So that's there. Then in spiritual life, yes, in spiritual life, we are limiting ourselves in this world. We are going forward on the spiritual path. Yeah, that's is that easy? You're walking on a spiritual path, but sometimes the mind would just like to go off that path and just wander free. You're in a forest, and it just can stay on the path, or you can just go off the path, just anywhere between the trees. I want to check that out. Yes, some adventure. Yes, just stay on the same old trodden path where everything is predictable and where everyone tells you what will come next, and they'll say, when you're 25, this will happen to you, and when you're 30, that will happen, and when you're 35, that will happen, and it goes on until you're 60 and 65 and 70, and it's like, but do I have any choice of my own? Do I have some freedom to just be a unique individual, a unique personality, someone who is just creative and true to his own inspiration? Isn't that beautiful? It sounds beautiful, doesn't it? No, it does. Prescribed duty. This path, this narrow path of staying on a prescribed path. How can I do? How can I limit myself this way to Hare and Krishna? Like these horses that have two blinds on their eyes, Hare and Krishna. How can I walk like that in such a way? Freedom. Okay. Yes, it looks good. But then, is there freedom? If you really look, we want freedom. Oh yes, we do. But do you get it? There is this Mr. Pavlov. Mr. Pavlov was a gentleman who did some experiments with rats, the poor creatures. He had 3 entranceways with a little gate, number 1, number 2, number 3, and he put some food behind number 1. the rats were checking out all the 3 gates and found out that the food was behind number 1. The second time they came back, second night, they checked it out, went straight to number 1, and the food was there. They checked 2 and 3, no food. On the third day, they only went to number 1 and never went back to 2 and 3. It was clear it was behind 1. On the fourth day, Mr. Pavlov had put a little bit of electric current on the metal door of gate number 1, and as the rats were trying to open the door with their nose, they got a shock. And after that, they didn't go back to number 1. Even when there was food behind it, they checked the other doors, but not number 1. This is known as the Pavlov reflex. And it is said that in this way the rats were conditioned. Bhagavad-gita addresses the same point, although it doesn't call it Pavlov reflex, nor did it put electric current on the doors where the food is stored, which is a nasty experiment, really. But anyway, the Bhagavad-gita says, Prakrite kriyamanani guna karmani sarvasa ahankara vimudatma kartaham iti manyate. We think that we are doing things. I'm doing so many things. We think that we are the doer of activities which are in actuality carried out by the modes of material nature. Oh, winter, nice and cozy near the heater with a warm cup of tea. Yeah, no wonder it's freezing cold, right? And in the summer, like nice, cool air-conditioned room, a big chunk of ice cream, and there you go. So all dictated by the modes of nature. When I was 10, and when the doorbell rang, I hoped it was my friend who would ask me to come out and play. Right? When I was 20, I didn't want to do the same thing anymore. I wanted someone else to ring my doorbell and take me somewhere else. And each 10 years it changed. Right? Now if someone rings my doorbell and asks if I want to come outside and play, I'm looking at them, are you like, where's that coming from? No. So now even if someone comes and said, it's a Saturday night, let's go, that's okay. Let's go to 26 2nd Avenue. I don't really want to go anywhere else on a Saturday night. So things have changed each time. So that's not me. That's not choice. That's not choice. That's just dictated by the hormones, dictated by the 3 modes of material nature. Like that. Right? Suddenly there it was. As a kid, everything was fine. And then suddenly there was sex desire. And then everything changed. And before that, never worried about these things. Right? So suddenly the 3 modes of material nature, they dictate. Yeah. At different ages. It's like, when you're young, you don't care about anything. You have your energy. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the problem is. You'll work it out. You can sleep anywhere. Sleep on the floor. Sleep in a chair. Whatever, Sleep. Not going to spend money. Your flight's early in the morning. Sleep on the airport. Yeah. And it's like, old people, but, what's the arrangement, where we're going to stay, and what's the hotel, and, who's going to pick me up, who's going to drop me off, who's going to carry the luggage, and it's like, do we have the insurance, and what else, and it's the whole thing. It's like, you want security now, because you're old, you can't sleep on the floor. Your back will go out, and you're lucky if that's all. You might get a kidney infection. It's serious from the cold, and gosh, what else can you get in your old age, sleeping on the floor? Oh no. Forget that. Some people, they are already old when they're 10 years and they can never sleep on the floor in this life. But you get the point. So our needs change not just according to our desire, but according to nature. There are dictates of nature. And that is very intricate, actually, and very subtle. And we think we make choices, but a lot of it is dictates by nature, simply. The tongue. The tongue is said is very powerful. Want to taste so many things this tongue wants to do. So, prescribed duty begins with controlling the tongue. The senses are a network leading to death. This is the favorite song in the Hare Krishna movement. Before they honor any prasad, they very happily sing, Sarira Vijaja Yudenyatik. The senses are a network leading to death. I mean, I think not everyone is aware of the translation. They wouldn't sing it so happily. But anyway, it's got a happy end, though, the song, because it is by the mercy of the Lord that we can overcome this problem with the senses. And then we take prasad, we taste things that are offered to Krishna. If we take anything that is not offered to Krishna, then only kilvisai, only sinful, then only sinful reactions. So even vegetarian, you're still getting karma. And it still goes on the bill, right? So the karma is like a bill. It's like one of these restaurants where you just eat and it's all written down, everything. In the end, it's like, gosh, that's a monster bill. We didn't do all that. We didn't have all that. No. Yes, you did. It came on this plate. Oh, gosh, I guess we had it. Oh, so many things. So karma follows us in this way. We must somehow or other know. So once we know about karma, okay, action, reaction, this makes sense. Human beings are responsible. Animals, they don't make karma. Animals only experience the karma from a previous life. Animals can do whatever they want. No reaction. When a crocodile eats a bird, no problem for the crocodile. Problem for the bird, but not for the crocodile. There is no karma involved for the crocodile. If we eat a bird, then karma involved. So human beings, so the human form of life has responsibility. So therefore, once we get knowledge, once we understand that as human beings we have we are responsibility. We are responsible. It's not a matter of choice. It's not that, I decide to be responsible or irresponsible. It feels so good to be irresponsible. No, we are responsible. We are held accountable in the human form of life. That is the situation. So, that's what I forgot, Radhamadava.
Oh, did you?
I think so. I was thinking, yeah. Because of the recitation, I don't know, I was not used to it. No, saying this broke the routine.
Yeah.
Make up for that.
Sasha will be happy to explain everything to you at any time.
Yeah. Okay, so the point is then that we do have responsibilities. Simply by the law of karma. And therefore, that we have to understand. And so when we have knowledge, when we have some knowledge about that, and we can understand that, then we can appreciate, all right, I'd better save myself from all that trouble. So there's a path. If karma is a swamp. Karma is a swamp. You get, your foot sinks in the mud and you go down and you can't get out. And God knows what lives in that swamp. So in that way, it's not all like, where are we? I want to go off the path. Yeah, but not in the Everglades. Wait a minute. Where are you? What is there off the path? I was in India in Australia with that gentleman from India who's sitting there behind the phone, and he's live streaming. Yes, and we were walking in Australia, and we wanted to go off the road, and we went off the road, and we're off the road walking on this path. And suddenly he is behind me and he calls out very loud, "Hui!" Now, I go, what do you make of that? If someone behind you calls out, "Hui!" Okay, it was clear. I wasn't quite sure what the hui was. But then again, I was sure that I didn't want to meet that hui. And I was wondering where the hui was, right? I wasn't quite sure. First of all, I wasn't quite sure what the hui was and where the hui was. So, if he would have said hui to the right, that would have helped. But he just said hui. So, I was looking everywhere. Where is the hui? Anyway, I didn't see any hui in front, right? So I just decided, I chose for the front and I flew forwards, as fast as I could go. And then, according to him, there was a huge snake to the left, only 30 centimeters away from my leg with burning red eyes. Was it? Huh? Huh? And he looked terrible. It looked really...
Cobra.
Cobra, you reckon? They told me it was a python.
Is it not python?
Yeah, python.
Python.
Yeah, only a python. What a small one, carpet python. Wasn't too bad, actually. They say they're not even deadly. But anyway, hui. Yes, there always is that situation, like if you go off the path, you might come across a hui, if you know what I'm talking about. And well, you don't mind, I'm sharing this intimate exchange, with everybody else. No, it was. I've teased him with this for a long time, and today it is maybe the worst I've ever done, but please forgive me. And because I don't mean to make fun of you, but I'm just sort of sketching a situation, because it goes like that, I mean, it's easy to say when we're sitting here that you would say, snake to the right, yeah. But when you are actually in that situation, then you don't say something like that. You say something like, "Hooey!" Anyway, what to do? Anyway, the point is about going off the path. Right. So yes, it's not just a beautiful countryside. There are things that are a complication. So after that, we didn't walk there again. I skipped that japa walk the next day, took another one on the side. We did stay on the sidewalk the next day. What can you do? It's sort of, was that a Pavlov reflex, maybe? It looked like that. Right? So in this way, prescribed duties are making sense if we think about it. The Bhagavad-gita described regulative principles. Now, some people, they came driving and they're going to drive back in the night. And when you drive at night, you're going to get some really dark stretches somewhere, you know. And on these really dark stretches, you just drive on the white lines. And that's it. I mean, you need the white lines. If there's no white lines, you're off the road. I mean, the white lines is what it's about, isn't it, at night? Whether you see the edge of the road or not, you see the white lines, and you drive on the white lines. So in this way, we have regulative principles. And these are our white lines. And we drive in the dark on the white lines. Of course, if you drive all night, then gradually it gets light. As it gets light, you're still driving on the white lines, but not only, you're also seeing the landscape. You're seeing a beautiful lake. Well, driving white over there, look at that lake, nice. There's a mountain, there's palm trees, little beach also. Oh, looks good here. And still on the white lines. Like this, we are driving. Spiritual life is like that. In the beginning, we're driving in darkness. We're beginning in darkness. And the white lines is everything. The regulative principles. How many are you following? 4 regulative principles. Then there are additional regulations. 64 limbs of bhakti. There's no end to it. And at one point you go, whew, that's a whole package and a half. But that's the focus. But gradually we begin to perceive the landscape of Krishna consciousness. And it's not so narrow anymore. So the narrowness seems to be there in the beginning. Because in the beginning we experiencing the white lines. And that's all there is, the white lines. White lines. No. But then we begin to actually discover the landscape of Krishna consciousness, the amazing qualities of Krishna. And we begin to see how Krishna is actually very, very far out. Like I have a dramatic rendition for you, just to entertain you, of one of my favorite pastimes, and this is the pastime where once upon a time there was an island in the far away ocean, and on that island it was an island filled with snakes. The king of the snakes was known as Kaliya. Somehow or other, Garuda he likes snakes, for breakfast, lunch and dinner and snacks in between. So therefore Garuda, it was his favorite spot. He would regularly go there and have some snakes. So the snakes were finding this problematic, so they made a deal that they would make a regular offering, right, with some sacrifice, and then the others would be left alone. Anyway, at one point, King Kaliya was fed up with this and decided to challenge Garuda and take him on. But that was not so successful, so Kaliya had to flee for his life. And somehow or other he knew that there was once upon a time, in ancient times, a great sage, Subari Muni, who was meditating underwater for a period of 10,000 years. In those days, they lived a little longer, and the yogis were also very powerful. So Bari Muni was underwater, bloop, 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 meditating. Bloop, bloop, bloop. So since he was there for 10,000 years, he got to know every little creature there, and he knew every single fish in the Yamuna where he was meditating. And one day Garuda came there and he ate the leader of all the fish. He just ate that fish. This is too much. I mean, he just ate the leader of the fish. I curse this Garuda, if he ever comes here again, that he will die. Therefore Kaliya, knowing about this curse, took shelter in the Yamuna, and suddenly the Yamuna became extremely poisonous. And then one day Krishna and his coward boyfriends went to the Yamuna, and just then, as they were approaching the river, there was one calf missing. So Krishna said, I'll just go and get that calf. Meanwhile, the boys and the other calf, they were all drinking the water of the Yamuna, and it was heavily poisoned, and they all died. When Krishna returned, there were all these dead bodies lying on the banks of the Yamuna. Anyway, since he is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although he doesn't tell it all the time, Krishna revived all these boys and all these calves, so they were back alive. Then, while they were still sort of squeezing themselves from, we were dead, and now we're alive. Just next moment, Krishna climbs in a tree, jumps in the water, and then starts to make musical sounds with the water. Like that. When that snake heard the musical sound, is he who is in my waters, and appeared monster of a snake with many hoots, not one but many. That's a real hui. And then that Kaliya grabbed Krishna in the coils and kept him for a long time. Next, Krishna danced on the hoots of Kaliya. Finally, he freed himself, started to dance on the hoots of Kaliya. Very elegantly, but he kicked the snake at the same time, who got a headache and was about to croak it when suddenly the wives appeared of Kaliya. And these wives, all teary-eyed and all come before Krishna and say, oh, please don't kill our husband. What are we going to do without him? And Krishna says, yeah, well, gosh, what do we do now? These are tough things. It's hard to say no when these ladies ask. So Krishna said, okay, all right then, I won't kill him. But then the next thing came. He can't stay here. Now at this point in time, we have the situation that here is Kaliya, this snake, and he's in this river, and he's just killed all your friends. Anyway, he revived them, and now he's got to go. So now if I would have handled the situation, what I would have done, I would have told that snake, I said, now you listen, you snake. If you ever show your snaky face again in this neck of the woods, you're finished. You understand, you snake? Then I would have pulled out my 2 6-shooters and I would have, shot and said, and now you dance, you snake. Now you dance, right? And then, once that snake would have been at a distance, it would have just turned around, shaken his fist, and said, and now, you get out of here. I'll get you back, Swami. That snake would have said, I'll get you back, Swami. That's how I would have handled the situation. And many of, I'm a big snake, and many of you probably the same way. Krishna, he did it in a much better way. Krishna did it first by flattering him. He said, oh, king of the snakes. Oh, he knows I'm a king. He glorified him. And then, after doing so, then he also explained to him that now that he had been blessed by the marks of Krishna's feet, so that he could, Garuda wouldn't touch him anymore, so he could return to his kingdom. And in this way, he flattered Kaliya, pacified Kaliya, and happily sent him on the road to regain his kingdom. So, in this way, when we look at Krishna, we look how Krishna is very attractive, how he's playful, how he is beautiful, how he is noble, how he is just dealing very expertly and very considerately. And in this way, when we are appreciating, then we can develop a little bit of appreciation for Krishna, and we might even say, he's nice, actually. And there it begins. Once we say, actually Krishna is nice, I like him, then everything changes. And then suddenly, no more meditation on all these white lines, on all these restrictions. Then we can actually be free. Then we realize that actually this path related to Krishna is full of taste and full of flavor. It is not narrow at all. It is very broad. It is filled with unlimited experiences and taste. It's an adventure. And as far as these white lines, on the other side of the lines there are snakes, crocodiles, and everything else that is in the category of hui, because I wasn't sure but what hui could be. But I mean, in my mind, it could have been a hippopotamus. It could have been many things. A hui, right? Right. So, in this way, when we stay on the Krishna conscious path, in the beginning, it's narrow and restricting. But with time, it becomes broader and broader. Therefore, in the beginning, we feel a pinch of renunciation. In the beginning, we experience all these restrictions. Later on, we don't even see them anymore. We just see all the landscape of Krishna's unlimited qualities and pastimes, and we become absorbed and say, what? There is this amazing match. Match? What? There's like, have you heard of Trump? Who is he? Right? We just completely become so absorbed, and find all satisfaction there. Therefore, when you speak about austerity, troublesome, renunciation, all these things, that's only the beginning. Because as we go forward on this path, it becomes very inspiring. Very inspiring. Then one is in an inspired state of Krishna consciousness, happily dancing on that path. Oh yes. And certainly not experiencing it like an austerity or like, oh, I have to give up so many things. Yeah, what do I have to give up? All this rubbish. Give up all the rubbish, all the foolish things. Eating unedible things, drinking undrinkable things. I'm sitting on a train, 2 little girls, I don't know, I was estimating 13. And they're chatting and this, that. And then suddenly one of the little girls says to the other one, do you drink whiskey? And I go, do you drink whiskey? So small, drinking whiskey. Don't you know that that's disgusting stuff? That it is foul and filthy and horrible, disgusting, and if you drink the stuff, that you get totally, that your head will spin and your stomach will turn upside down and you'll vomit up sour and filthy smelling vomit? Don't you know that? You don't? Well, it's rubbish in this way. But somehow or other, they were talking about it. Ignorance is bliss. How nice is the Bhagavad-gita to save us from the real trouble. Yes. What is there to renounce? What is there to renounce? Oh, I can't give it up. Right? That's our misfortune. So that little struggle in the beginning is actually helping us to overcome all the trouble. And then the more we get into Krishna, the more we relish, because there is an unlimited variety of taste and experience out there. Oh yes. It doesn't end with what is the meaning of the word Krishna? All attractive. No. That's where it begins. Then we'll find out how Krishna is all attractive. And once we do so, then what else is there to do? Because then there's not enough time in a day. And every day is too short for all the things we want to do for Krishna. Every day is too short. Yeah. Anyway, those are some of the thoughts that came to my mind on this verse. I'm a little bit early, but what to do? I said what I have to say, so now it's your turn to see if you have any comments or questions or whatever.
So, as an aspiring devotee, I can't say I'm free from the influence of the modes of nature. My question is, sometimes I may have some duty, some prescribed duty, and it may be troublesome. But maybe I should give it up because actually it's, I may be, for example, I can look at the example of Prabhupada and Jhansi. So it was troublesome. The governor took away and he gave it up. He decided to go somewhere else. So let's say I'm trying to establish a center and I'm having trouble. At what point do I say I can give it up, or is that giving it up out of a mode of passion? It's my duty to wake up early. I get a little sick. Now, is it too troublesome? Is it good for my... At what point, how do I understand when, as a devotee trying to do service, something is troublesome? At what point can I understand, actually, I should give it up, or no, I should just push forward?
1 second. I had some trouble in my knees, so had to stretch them for 1 minute.
You can't give up your duty of sitting properly.
I know. I even have a cartoon, where all these people are sitting in some pose, and then there's one who's sitting like I'm sitting now. And then the comment is, and one of the older monks who's sitting in a sort of lotus pose says to the guy who's leaning back, he says like, I used to be a crazy young man like you. Sitting. It feels good to stretch the legs. Okay, back in my official pose. Yes. I think I read a nice thing in the writings of Kavi Karnapur. And Kavi Karnapur, one of our acharyas, gurus, teachers from the past, and he wrote about purified naturalness. So, I think that one thing I encountered when I went to India and spent time in India, you spent a lot of time in India, I found that Indian society is more natural. People are more natural. People are like kind of very they're natural. The West is lives more for an idea. If there's an idea from this is how it should be, then this is how we're going to be. Whereas in India, there's always this chalega. And chalega means, what does chalega mean?
It's okay.
Huh?
It's okay, Marley.
It's
Whatever comes, we accept.
chalega. Chalega. It will do. Chalega. It's okay. It will do. Right? So, I think that in Vedic time, when we read this Gita, I think we should also have a little bit of chalega, a little bit of we're doing as good as we can. But when you're tired, it says you're supposed to rise early. But you rise early and, and an hour later you're back down totally finished, totally dead. Maybe there's a necessity for a step in between, But we don't just give up the ideal. We remember the ideal. The ideal is to rise early, and the explanation is because the different times of the day, they have different qualities. And the early morning is in goodness, middle of the day in passion, evening is predominated by ignorance. Therefore, early morning is a good time for spiritual activities. But it takes practice before we can do it. So it doesn't all have to be with so much rigidity. It can be a bit more gradual, and if we are not always performing perfect, we can forgive ourselves also. We don't have to. Now, but in due course of time, we want to make progress. So as we want to make progress, we also have to see, I must follow the path of pure devotional service if I want to attain success in this life, which means going back to Godhead. Therefore, I should maybe take initiation so that I fix myself. And then, if I follow that, then at the end of my life, I can go back to Godhead. That's the purpose of initiation, to somehow or other fix ourselves so that we can go back to Godhead. Okay? So that's where it comes. Then, but that doesn't one cannot just do that in an impulse or based on desire. Right? Desire is not a foundation to take initiation. The foundation for initiation means some practice is required. So, abhyasa yoga yuktena chetasananigamina. First, that practice. When the regular practice is there, the prayaschitta is there, the preliminary purification is there, then this purascharya, the initial preparation, then we can fix ourselves. And when we fix ourselves, then it is not so much an austerity anymore. But then again, periods may come that it's not possible. Like now, you and me, we are getting old, or one could say, that's optimistic. Another way of saying we are old.
Prabhupada said after 40, old age.
Yeah, but we know by now that one's 70 becomes your number, then things are really different. Right? That we know. So in this way, and sometimes you may just say like, well, I think I really need to rest that extra half hour. Yeah. So we should not be so transcendental that we forget to be human. Yeah. I think that's very important. Yes, we want to be transcendental, but if we forget that we are human, then our transcendence is not complete. We are human. And by practice, yes, we can rise above, but still we take care of these squeaky bodies, of our minds. So it is all right to be human, and yet default settings never change. So early rising doesn't go away. You cannot say, well, I don't do that. No. It's like, change the clock. Change the clock. We do it when we go somewhere else, other country, we change the clock. So, just change the clock a few hours.
Ajutananda Prabhu told me once that he asked Srila Prabhupada, how often should you try to do something and not get what your result? When do you give up? How often do you try? So Ajutananda told me that Prabhupada said, try 3 times instead.
Yeah, well, it depends also what it is.
Right.
If it's an essential element, then keep on trying. If it's the 4 regulative principles and you're struggling with them, keep on trying, because Prabhupada also said failure is the pillar of success. You fail 1,000 times and then 1,001, it starts to work. Right?
Thank you for this class, Maharaj. Even though that we were born with the prescribed duties and we're supposed to execute them in order to live this life, there is some way somehow that we can change a little bit those prescribed without getting off the road and keep driving with a white line in front of our eyes.
You want to cut some corners.
I want to go around.
You gotta be very experienced driver. Then you can do that. Then you can do that. No, it's like you're a professional driver, right? So, and you know the road where you're driving, so you know what you can get away with and what you can't. So we see that sometimes the very experienced devotees, they cut a corner here, they cut a corner there for a greater purpose, for service. Yes, that can be done. But in the beginning, if a new driver, right? If you're a driving instructor and the new driver is not very careful about the white lines, what are you going to do? You're going to fail that one for the exam for sure. Right? So if we cut corners, we have to be very experienced. Otherwise, not. And on main things, they are not negotiable, right? No meat, fish, or eggs. Now, mind you, we're on a plane, right? And there's the plane crash, and you land in the middle of nowhere, and there's nothing to eat. And you're on this island, and now what you're gonna do? You can go out fishing, but you have promised by initiation no meat, fish, or eggs. Now, what are you going to do? And there are some birds on that island as well. So now what do we do? And you say like, well, for emergency, I will eat something like that. And I'll go back to default. Or are you say, no, I'm fasting. And no matter what, Krishna will, if I meant to live, he will send something to eat. And then there was a box floating in the sea, and it was a vegetarian Christmas packet. No? Anyway, I don't know. Or maybe not, or you can eat the fish. So it's a tough question. I mean, I'm not going to ask you to answer this in public. Because it's difficult. It's difficult to answer this question. And we might be, if we do an interview on this, we might be divided. We might find that we're all divided on this question. Some would eat the fish and say, well, what can you do? Eat the fish and say, sorry. I couldn't do it. There was nothing else I could do. I feel really bad about it. Others, never. So some things really we should not play with. And then rising early or not so early, okay, those are more secondary things. Right. Yeah. That depends on so many factors. Other question? No?
I have one.
Oh, you do?
Thank you. You mentioned what I can understand from your lecture is that you say the happiness in following prescribed duty is if you find Krishna and understand Krishna or get to know Krishna. Is there also happiness in prescribed duty without Krishna?
Well, is there happiness without Krishna? Then there's just the happiness of I've done it, some sense of self-worth. That's all you get out of it. I did it, I did it. But that doesn't last very long, But when we're actually beginning to explore Krishna and experience Krishna's amazing qualities, then we become satisfied there, and then all these prescribed duties are easy to follow.
And because you mentioned that in Vedic times it was common that they follow prescribed duties, but not necessarily with Krishna, isn't it?
Yeah, so therefore you can see therefore it says even Vedic times was good, but not good enough. Vidvam samapi karsati, even someone who's very learned is still struggling, still not fulfilled.
So therefore, Maharaj.
I hear you. Yeah.
So therefore, they're following prescribed duty without a purpose or a goal, which should be devotional service or dedication to the Supreme Lord.
Yes. So that's not really not really the purpose of Vedic culture.
Because prescribed duty also can become mechanical, which you just do, and there's no.
That's right.
Yeah, nothing behind it.
And India has a lot of that. I mean, I'm saying that and I know, and sometimes the people of India got tired of all the duty, and you're supposed to do this prayer and that and this and that. It's just they wanted to liberate themselves from all that. Therefore, and then Prabhupada came and gave the real meaning of Vedic culture and Vedic literatures, and then with fresh enthusiasm can we apply ourselves.
So, on the other hand, prescribed duty can also mean occupational duty as well? Or is it very?
Yes, Prabhupada says that here. He says about work. What's that work thing? One who is in Krishna consciousness should not give up earning money out of fear that he's performing fruitive activities.
Right, so
Prabhupada says.
So then in Srimad Bhagavatam, I think 150, it says, One who has forsaken his material occupation to engage in devotional service of the Lord may sometimes fall down while in an immature stage, right? Yet there is no danger of him being unsuccessful. On the other hand, a non-devotee, though fully engaged in occupational duty, does not gain anything.
Yeah. Yes. So we can prematurely renounce, right? And try to spend all our time. Somehow or other, I'm bold by nature, and then I took sannyas, and then, I went through this whole process, and then it was time for the yajna. And I'm sitting in this yajna, and I started sweating, and they hadn't lit the fire yet. It wasn't warm yet, but I started sweating, and I thought, why am I doing this to myself? Kadamba Kanana, you're always doing this. You're always making your life more difficult than it has to be. Why are you doing this now? But it's a bit late to get up and walk away. Yeah? So I sat through the whole thing, and there it was, Then I was a sannyasi. What to do? So, and then, then we have to make it work. So it's not so easy. Suddenly you're there, you have renounced all material activity. That's good. But now you have to fill it with Krishna consciousness. That's challenging. It's one thing giving up, but you have to fill it with Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, how can you maintain that giving up? That is the challenge. That is. So premature initiation is all when we're all focused on giving up because I want to advance very quickly, so I want to give up so many things, but we're not filling it in with service to Krishna, with attachment to Krishna, with actually hearing about Krishna and chanting and all these things. So, but once we get fully absorbed in just that, devotional service, hearing and chanting and everything, then we can leave the job and we'll never look back. Like, only Krishna.
So then it's okay to give it up.
Huh?
Then it's okay to give it up.
Then it's great to give it up.
Don't we usually suggest that other way? First develop a little taste, Brahmajasvanivartante. Then it becomes giving up. It becomes easy.
Yeah. That's what we're talking about. Yeah.
And you don't cut corners there because it might be a hui on the...
That's right. That's right. There could be a hui there.
I'm sorry.
No. You become famous now. The whole world. It's streamed as well. Everybody knows about the hui now. But the thing is, we already knew about the hui before. And it's only you gave it a name, right? But, we've all met our huis out there, Little kirtan and then...
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, a little more kirtan and then we'll... Ja.